All right, let's go ahead and get this started. Give me 1 second. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Life of Champ podcast. For today's episode 221, we're going to be talking about the one identity problem. This is going to be something that I see all too often, and it's something that I think is definitely worthy of talking about, obviously, while I'm making a podcast on it. A few things I want to say before I go ahead and get it started. Make sure you go and follow me on Twitch, TikTok, Rumble, and on Spotify at Life of a Champ podcast on every single platform, as well as make sure you go and tap in with me on X. It's at Life of a Champ with a dot or an underscore. I can't remember which one it was. But before that, if you do not know who I am, my name is Champ, and I help men build their foundation of masculinity. I do it many different ways, but I also like to give you guys some type of information. So we're going to get into that for today. So the foundation of this podcast comes down to this main concept, right? This main concept is this. I believe that people should not be one dimensional. In a world filled with complexities, in a world filled where you could be anything and everything that you would want to be, I feel I see all too often the patterns of people and their behaviors and their personalities that would demonstrate that they are one dimensional, right? In a one dimensional person, I can give you a few examples of what this looks like, right? This could be a self-proclaimed thing, and this is what it is for the most part, right? You have the gamers, you got the stoners, you got the I got it a drunk, even though people would really consider themselves a drunk. That's kind of what they do, right? You got the gym bros, you got the athletes, you got the sports fans, and you got a nerd, you got whatever. You got a bunch of different one dimensionalities, right, that exist. And I believe that this is going to be one of the biggest downfalls that I see all too often, right? Is people they like to confine themselves to playing one specific role or upholding one specific identity instead of understanding how broad this life is, right? I feel like they get super comfortable with only carrying one identity, only adopting one identity, only being boxed in to one identity, right? And this is going to lead to a host of different problems, right? Let's just say, for example, you are self proclaiming one of these things, right? That is where you're spending most of your time. That is where you're spending most of your attention. That is where you're spending most of your energy. And there are other aspects of life that need to truly be worked on, and you're not putting in the time and effort to go ahead and work on those specific things. And that can lead to a host of problems because of that. So, never carry and adopt only one identity, right? And like I said, I'll show you some examples of how this could turn into a problem. But yes, so never carry and adopt only one identity. Never be boxed in and let somebody box you in. So what that means is this, right? There's going to be certain things there's going to be certain ways in which you can box yourself in, and then there's going to be certain things in which other people are going to want to box you in. They're gonna typecast you, right? If you don't know what that means, to typecast somebody is to assign them a specific role based on typically the way in which they look or how they've acted on a previous role. So, for example, if you're a person that they see doing a specific thing, maybe all they see is, oh, he's just going to the gym. That's all he's doing. Or, oh, this guy, he's just playing video games all day, right? They're gonna say, oh, well, he's just a gamer. He's this, he's that, whatever, right? Don't let them box you in. Don't let them box you in, and don't be boxed in as well, right? So I think that's just very, very important. Like I said, it's letting somebody typecast you, and I believe that each of us individually should have a lot more complexities and should have a lot more dimensions to our personality. And of course, we do, but the way we go about expressing that, I think, is very, very important, right? So, right, don't just be blank, right? Don't just be a gamer, don't just be a stoner, don't just be a gym bro, don't just be an athlete, don't just be a sports fan, right? It's not great to typecast yourself. It's not great for another person to try to typecast you. And I think at the root of the idea, I think it's this. You should want to be defined by things that are representative of your values and your truest and best interests. And of course, we're going to run into a few of these things like I'd mentioned, right? We'll run into where you'll consider yourself maybe a gamer or whatever, right? If that's what you want to do and that is who you want to be seen as, that's an entirely different thing. But I would recommend that you have much more complexities and much more dimensionality to your personality. Because if you don't, there's going to be other areas of life where you're just going to have to lack because you just don't spend any time or energy into those fields. So it shouldn't just be a few things that you can be defined by, right? I would like to think me personally is a person who've always tried to stay away from these things that are the frames of being a typecast. So for example, right? I come from Hispanic heritage, but I don't necessarily like to be classified or defined or confined to being a Hispanic, right? I like to be champ. I like to just be myself. I like to do things that I like to do. Not necessarily that is the stereotype of, oh, these are what this is how Hispanics are like. This is what they do. This is what they think about. This is what they talk about. These are the things that they're interested in, right? I'm much more interested in what I'm interested in, not a box that somebody could place me in. So I think that's very, very important because I see a lot of people, they kind of just accept these things. So like whether you're black or whether you're whatever, right? It doesn't even matter what you are, right? They just they understand the stereotypes that come with it, and of course part of that's going to be culture, right? Whatever. But at the same time, I feel like people try to over adopt to try to fit in, to try to stay in this one box, right? And I would recommend for you to step out, try new things, and add some more complexity to your character, right? This is going to go a long way, and yet I don't see it happening enough. And it just makes life better, man. If you're trying to pursue many different avenues in this life, or if you're trying to pursue many different interests in this life, it's just going to go so much better for you. And I say this because I believe that there's certain people when they attach themselves to only having one identity, or what I would like to say, just being one dimensional. Some of these interests or some of these identities are used almost as a coping mechanism to help relieve some stress on the way that life is going. So, like, let's just say, for example, you're not doing that well in life, but yet you have video games, right? So that's what you always go to, right? There's a lot of worries and life is hard, and you're going to have work and things like that, and then you just want to relax, and then you're just a gamer, right? So what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of people that use that coping mechanism instead of handling and exploring their interests or doing other things, right? They just are confined by that one dimension. Does that make sense? And they use it as a coping mechanism to forget everything else, right? They overindulge, whether this is maybe they're drunks, or maybe they just drink a lot, or maybe they smoke a lot, or maybe they just go to the gym, right? I feel like all of these people, they all have something where they're just too overly invested in one facet of life, in one sole interest, right? And this is very, very confining. This is very, very limiting. Like I expressed, how there's so much complexity to this world, and to just settle for just one thing is to say that you got it right, right? And here's the thing: I would say most people who are confined by these one dimensions, right? Who is the gym bro, or who is the fucking is the game, or whatever. Like I said, you can use whatever example, or you can even give me some in the comments. But people who are confined by these one things, I feel like they cling to it. They cling to it too much, to the point where it's like it's almost used as a coping mechanism. Because here's the thing: they have, let's just say you're good at video games, or you're a jacked guy that looks good, whatever, right? I feel like they cling too much to that, and that is something that they're familiar with. So that's what they want to go ahead and do, right? That's something that they're potentially good at. So that's all they want to do. That's all they want to invest their time and energy, and they kind of build their personality based off of that, right? And I just think that shit is so lame. And one thing I want to mention with this as well is who you are in your free time is who you are as a person, right? So we all have our own life obligations that we must attend to, right? So maybe this is, your work, or maybe you're building a business, or maybe I would say usually you're going to be one of those two. You're either going to be one of those two. You're either building a business, or you're having a job, or you're doing both, right? Outside of that, that is who you are, right? So if you spend most of your time doing something, and yeah, you enjoy it, right? You have a good time by it, but here's the thing: you don't want to be defined by that. Like I said, if you're just gonna if that's the only thing you're going to do, you better be 1,000% sure that that's exactly what you want to do, and that is going to help facilitate the growth in your character. Because if it isn't, and yet that's exactly who you are, like I had mentioned, you're using that as a coping mechanism to go ahead and relieve some stress because maybe life isn't going the way that you would like it to go in other areas of your life, right? So I'll use an example. I want to tell you one of the examples that I see all too often, right? So let's just say you're a sports fan, right? Sports, odds is you're not playing for the team, right? You're probably not playing for the team. You're a sports fan, whatever, right? I could say no. Let's just say, for example, I'll use me for an example, right? Let's just say I'm a Suns fan, right? Cool. A lot of those people who are just Suns fans, right? That's like almost everything that they're interested in, damn near. That's almost everything that they talk about, right? They pay too much attention and they're overly close to their favorite team. And it really obviously has really nothing to do with them, but at least it's something that they can at least that's something that they can truly focus in on in a life where there's so many complexities like I had mentioned, right? And part of it's like they use it as a coping mechanism by being able to go ahead and blame something that is that is external outside of them and not have any responsibility for how it goes, whether it goes good or bad, right? I feel like there's a lot of people they like to use these, like I said, I'll call them coping mechanisms because one dimensionality is essentially cope, and this could be very very bad, very very bad, and obviously I'm stressing this because it's something that I see all too often, man. It's just like if you're gonna choose one thing, man, it needs to be almost damn near flawless. And that's obviously probably not going to be the case for most people, right? Most people don't choose things that are the most flawless decision that they possibly can make. So yeah, that is something that I must say because I think that's so important. So if you see yourself confined to one thing, right, or maybe upholding one identity, or staying so true and staying so solid with something that is obviously in your free time, is it really worth your time? Is it really what you want to do? Is it really what you want to be known for? Is it really the identity that you want to maintain? And essentially your personality. If you're okay with it, that's one thing. But here's the thing. I would say there's a lot of people who don't want to just be confined by these one things, and they'll have the realization after thinking about it that holy shit, that's the only thing that I'm doing. That is exactly what I do in my free time. That's the only thing that I do. That is when I get some free time, that is what I like to do. So that's the only thing that I do. And like I said, you need to have more dimensions in this life, right? You can't just be one dimensional. You need to add different dimensions of yourself. You need to add complexity to your character, like I had mentioned. Failing to do this is going to be very very costly, very very costly. So I had read something about in my book today. I'm reading this book called Mastery by Robert Greene. Shout out to Robert Greene. He was mentioning this one person and essentially how every single person is crafting their persona, and their persona is in basically what people perceive, right? People perceive your persona. So right now, you watch me, you're perceiving one of my persona that I put on with the podcast, right? Sure. With this, in the book, they were referring to this one woman who was putting on and who's selecting exactly what persona that she wants to go ahead and put on when she is displaying her art to the people, right? So when she was doing that, she was being very very careful about how she went about crafting this persona. So, for example, she didn't want to be typecasted. So what that means is essentially where you're fit into one role where people can define who you are, right? And it's as simple as that, right? So for example, let's just say in this in the realm that she was going into a male dominated field, right? She was an artist, and as she was an artist, she was in a particularly the artistry that she was doing and she was attending was one of male dominance, right? Where there's mostly males that are going to be uh, in this field of art, right? So when she was doing that, she understood that how easily she could be typecasted because she's a woman in a male-dominated space, and in those type of spaces, it's going to be easy to be able to potentially assume a lot about that person. And she didn't want to necessarily be typecasted, so she went ahead and made sure that the right parts of her persona were going ahead and being displayed so she could never be fully defined and confined to just one definition or to one person's conceptualization of her character. So whenever she's seen that things were going well, she leaned into it. Whenever she's seen how things potentially could go wrong, she made an effort to go ahead and essentially add more layers to her character, be more than one dimensional, right? So obviously she was a person who um, decided to be a little bit more mysterious because that was the persona that apparently she was giving off, so she leaned into it. And then when she realized that this persona could maybe come off as potentially less than competent, or maybe that she really wasn't that smart, or let's just say she wasn't that articulate, she went ahead and made sure to show that side of her persona, if that makes any sense. And what I kind of got from that was there's a lot of people who only show people one side of themselves instead of showing hopefully what should be the complexities of their life. That would give more dimensions to their character, right? So the thing that I took from that was this: any and every person that you go ahead and interact with, you're crafting a persona. What is the persona that they see, and are you okay with potentially being typecasted because of a one dimensionality? For me, that is not the case. I like to always show people that I am more than just what they can confine me to be, right? I have more than one interest that I can dive into. I have more than one conversation that I can fully invest time and energy into with almost any person. So that is the way that is what I would recommend. And here's the thing, like I said, you need to ask questions so you can see if your life is that way, or if it's not. And if it's not, fantastic. If it is, then you need to go ahead and change it, right? So I'll read some of these comments and then I'll get back to it. How do you add different dimensions, and what certain type of dimensions should we add? That's a great question. So it kind of goes back to what I was saying a little bit earlier, right? You should want to be defined by things that are representative of your values and of your truest and best interests. So that pretty much answers that, right? I would say any and every category of life that you deem to be of importance, whether you're completely interested in it or not, you need to be competent in that. So for example, that I think is the absolute fundamental, foundational dimension of life is health and wellness. If you're not attending to this, you're making literally a fatal mistake in life. So what that looks like is maybe taking care of your health, maybe eating a little bit better. You need to be conscious at somewhat in this level where you can at least have a conversation with somebody, and at the very least, hopefully be able to teach somebody something about health. If you can't do that, that's one dimension you're lacking that literally will shorten your life. And if you're okay with that, that's completely fine. Me personally, I would like to extend my life. I recognize that there's a certain fundamental basics of life that just happens to be one of them. Now, I find interest in that? Yes, because I care about my life. So, like I said, that is just one maybe certain type of dimension that I think is worth adding, right? If it isn't already added. But yes, I think all of them should be around your basic interests. I think they should all be around the values in which you want to go ahead and uphold. And more importantly, I think it's what type of perception do you want people to see you as, right? The things in which you do craft the perspective that people have of you, right? That is your persona, right? So if you're doing something and you might want to do it, but here's the thing: is that how people you want people to see you as? And of course, there could be an argument to say, well, do whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter how people look at you, and that definitely carries some weight and definitely has some merit to it. But at the same time, just know that your reputation should be important to you. Also, how do you make yourself the best persona possible for others to see you? I think ultimately authenticity is going to be the finest, the most based and finest way to tune your persona, right? So, like I said, if you want to do that, if you don't care what people have to say, fine, go ahead and do whatever you got to do. I think you should be at least conscious of both what you want to do and both how people will see that as. I think if you have a healthy balance between those and knowing when to actually, like, okay, when to be different and when it's probably not the best to be different. I'll say that. But yeah, I'd say how do you make yourself the best persona? I would say, just like I said, constantly reinvent yourself, constantly add some more dimensions, constantly learn new things, constantly become a complex character. Because here's the thing: a lot of people will be able to have conversations with you, and if you're just really only really good at one thing or leaning into one interest so heavily, you're lacking the ability to have depth. And depth in character is very important, obviously, for obvious reasons. I don't have to describe that, but you want to be a complex character. Everyone should want to be a complex character. You shouldn't want to be a person that is typecasted, right? You don't. If I could define your life in five words or 5 sentences, or I won't say 5 sentences. I'll just say like 2 sentences, right? And that's all that you are. That's all that you do. That's all that everyone knows you as. That sounds pretty lame to me, right? I would say it would take a lot more for a person to define me. You're going to need at least a few paragraphs to go ahead and define me, and for it to be even somewhat of a competent description. So you see what I'm saying? There's a lot of people, unfortunately, and here's the thing: you know who you are, right? You know what you do. You know who you are, right? Where you could truly be defined and summed up in a few sentences. I think that's never the way that I would like to be. And I'll give you another example of this typecast, right? So for example, right? I'll typecast myself right now. Watch. So I'm in the self-improvement space, right? Also, I'll say that, right? Where I'm trying to help men build their foundation of masculinity, right? Because I think this is very important, right? Me defining that is a version of typecasting myself. But at the same time, the way I go ahead and do that is going to be different than a lot of people, right? So a lot of people, and the advice that most people would give in to people in my position, they would say, I want you to stick to one thing and be the total expert in that field, right? So for example, recently I just did a dating and attraction series, right? And I could be that guy who's going in depth and trying to help as many people as I possibly can and only post and only talk about dating and attraction. Can I do it? Of course, because I spent the last 7 years researching that and I have gotten fairly good results, right? So can I do that? Of course I could, right? And that could be the entire typecast, and that's where you see a lot of people, they start to choose certain things that they know a lot about, and they lean into it fully, right? For me, I would never want to be defined by, oh, that champ's the guy that, you know he's just a dating guru or something like that. I would never want to be defined by that. I feel like I have so much more to give and so much more information to display and so much more character that can be expressed. And for me to typecast myself in that specific way, for me to be only showing that side, I think would not be doing anybody it would not be doing myself justice. I'll say that for sure. So in a world where people will try to typecast you, broaden your perspective, right? Hopefully you're more of an interesting character, and hopefully you're trying and striving to be more of an interesting character at the end of the day. But yes, don't typecast yourself, right? I could have easily chosen to be just a dating guy, but I could easily choose to be the gym bro that's just telling you, "Oh man, you need to make sure that you're eating and you need to make sure you're doing this workout and you need to make sure you're going to sleep on time." And I could be that guy because I've done enough research, right? And the entire point is this, right? There should be at least 4 to 5 things that you're very competent in that you could speak and actually have an extended, good, depthful conversation with other people about, right? If you don't have that for yourself in your life, you need to go ahead and do more soul searching. You need to go ahead and try new things. You need to go ahead and expand the complexity of your character, like I keep mentioning, because it's just super important, man. It's just super important. So, and what else do you have to do in this life besides, like I mentioned, just sticking just to one? That's just a lame life to me. And yeah, so I could easily be typecasted. I could easily be just the guy that does one thing, right? I could do the dating thing. I could be the philosopher. I could be the typical guy to tell you, "Oh, make sure you're not beating your meat." Or I could be the guy that's telling you, I could tell you a bunch of different things. "Oh, you need to make sure you're going into the gym and make sure you need to eat well and you need to make sure you're not choosing these types of foods or whatever." I could tell you all those things because I've done enough research. But here's the thing: I could do all of that, right? You could do all of that. You could do more than what you're doing, right? You could be more than who you are. And why would you not want to be? That's what I'm saying. So don't be one dimensional. Don't let somebody try to define who you are. Define who you want to be. And obviously with doing that, you must hopefully build that type of character with some type of morals, values, and hopefully some interests that would best describe the persona that you would like to uphold. But other than that, if you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to leave it in the comments, whether it's a whatever question, comment, like I said, leave it in the comments for sure. I'm gonna end it off here in a minute, but I definitely want to hear your guys' take on this, right? If do you see any more of these one-dimensional identities, right? I'm sure there's plenty. There's probably plenty that I'm missing. Of course there is. Um, but here's the thing: you guys just got to make sure it's interesting. If you're choosing just one, I still wouldn't even recommend that. You just got to make sure it's all of them should be interesting, man. All of them should be interesting at the end of the day. But yeah, you need to be a person that just can't be defined easily. Who cannot fit into a box. People are gonna try to box you in this life. Why be a person that could just be boxed in, man? Why be a person that just can be defined so easily? Why be a simpleton in a life where you could be anything and everything you would want to be? Why just be somebody that's so simple, right? And then yeah, I just think it's foolish when I meet somebody and I'm like, I know exactly who you are. I don't even need to know you. I don't even need to think. I don't even need to have any other conversations about you because or with you because I already know exactly who you are because you're only expressing one thing. That's it, right? You want to be around you don't want to be around people like that in the first place, right? Where they already know exactly what you're going to say, what you're thinking about. Nobody wants to be around that type of person. You want to be around people where they're constantly being able to actually reveal different things about their character, their own individual interests. You don't want to be a nobody wants to be around people who are just one dimensional. Oh yeah, look at this guy. Oh, he's just gonna talk about video games, and that's pretty much the only thing he really just talks about. He just talks about video games and how he wants to play video games and whatever. It's just or the guy, even the gym, bro. That shit's just lame. That shit's lame. And I'm around that because I do go to the gym myself, right? Yeah, it's just pathetic when you meet a gym bro and all they're talking about is what they're gonna eat next. They're gonna talk about the workout that they hit, and any and every meme that they send is gonna be gym related. That's it. That's all you have to your character. That's all you think about. Like that's all who you are is just the gym. That's it. Like, come on, bro. Like, there's got to be more to your character. There's got to be more that you're wanting to explore with your character. So yeah, don't just be confined to these simple things, right? These simple, most basic labels. Be a person who's labelless. Be a person who is incapable of being typecasted. I'm gonna say that, man. But of course, you're probably still gonna be able to be fit into some type of category. But make sure that category, like I said, if you're gonna be typecasted for the right reasons that are representative of your values and, like I said, of your truest and deepest interests. And I do want to reiterate the coping mechanism, right? If you're lacking in one aspect of life or you're only competent in one thing in this life, you don't want to lean into that, right? Congratulations, you're now competent on one thing. Now go ahead and earn competence in another area of life, right? Don't just overindulge. Don't just overly rely on something just because that's what you're familiar with or that's what you're good at. Don't just do those one things. Now, that means you need to go ahead and develop other aspects of your life, develop your other areas of your character, right? I just don't understand people who just lean so heavily into one thing just because they have it going well and that it's favorable to them. You need more to your character. You just need more to your character, man. That's what I'll say. It's just I see it all too often, man. If I just I can't stand being around those people, man. Where you're just I know who you are. I already know who you are. I don't need to hang around you one more time. I could sum up your entire life in like one conversation, bro. Like it's ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous, man. So yeah, I want to know what you guys think about it. If you're rewatching this, feel free to leave a comment. I'll go ahead and respond to the comments. But what do you think about people who are one dimensional? What do you think about yourself? Are you a person that can be defined to just one thing or maybe a few sentences? Are you a person that is much more complex, right? Of course, I would say a lot of people would like to argue that they are much more complex, of course, but at the same time, only time will tell. Who are you on your free time? What do you do in your free time? Because that's exactly who you are. Don't try to deny it because there's really no denial you possibly can have, right? If that's the only thing that you do, that's what everybody knows you as. That's who you are, bro. That's exactly who you are, right? So it's as simple as that, right? Have some more complexity, have some more structure. Govern yourself better so it's not just one thing. Or, like I said, make sure it's aligned with your values, man. It's as simple as that. But other than that, I don't have too much to say for today's episode. It was just good to talk about something that wasn't dating, because like I said, you can't typecast me, brother. I can't just be typecasted like that, man. I'm more than just I'm more than just one thing, man. I'll tell you that. So that's all I have to say for today's episode, man. This was episode 221 of the Life of a Champ podcast, talking about the one identity problem. Hopefully you don't have it. Hopefully you learn something from this. Hopefully you at least know the direction in which you need to go and take if you are one dimensional. But other than that, there will be next podcast is going to be on Thursday. Tapping with that for sure. I'll be going live Monday or Tuesday. I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be creating tier lists. So if there's a specific thing that you want to talk about, whether it's dating, whether it's anything related to self improvement that I've talked about before, health, it doesn't matter. Um, I want you to go ahead and let me know some tier lists that you would like to see from me. I'm doing 3 tier lists, so I don't know when specifically I'm gonna do all of them, but I'm gonna go back a little bit on the dating and attraction, because I just think these ones are the most interesting. So I'm going to be doing shit tests. I'm going to be doing things that make a man attractive, and I'm going to be doing choosing signals, right? So if you don't know what those are, tap in with the podcast that I had made. It was episode 200 and I think it was 212. If you want to know what choosing signals are. But essentially, I'll be ranking these things where I think they fit, how important they are. So tap in with that for sure. But other than that, I'll leave you guys off with the podcast motto. Fellas out here, we don't just work around here, man. We outwork. So make sure you outwork with these motherfuckers, because you know that I am, and you know that everyone else around me is as well. So you guys have a good rest of your night. Next podcast on Thursday. I'm going live on Monday or Tuesday. Tapping for that. And like I had mentioned, don't just be one dimensional. Add some complexity to your character, and don't let anybody typecast you, man. Y'all have a good night.